Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 102 of the Mugs Up Show, where today will be my addiction story part 3. Now, I'm wearing my puffy jacket because it is fucking freezing here in Oklahoma again. We're getting hit with another winter storm, it seems like. And so I'm having to be all nice and bundled up out here in my garage because it's so cold. I got a nice space heater right here beside me though, so hopefully it'll cozy up by the end of this episode. Now, last video was part 2 of my addiction story, and I introduced to you how my high school drinking experience began. And we're just going to talk about kind of the rest of my high school experience today, what that looked like. And then tomorrow's episode will kick off what all happened when I went to college and how did my addiction progress once I became a college student. Now, in high school, after that first drinking experience out with my buddies out at that ranch, drinking just became pretty much a regular weekend thing. It was very typical that every Friday us high school dudes would start looking for somebody that was 21 or older to buy us booze for the weekend. Oh man, I hit my camera, hold on. That'll do for now. We would start looking for somebody to buy us booze for the weekend, and usually would be very successful in doing so. And then we would just go out to someone's house or ranch or something and hang out and pretty much drink at least Friday night, if not Friday and Saturday night. And it just became more and more common for that to be happening on the weekends. It also became more and more common for me to drink more and more and more every time that, I went somewhere for the weekend to go drinking. Not much else to say besides that. I guess my sophomore year, I think it was my sophomore year. Actually, it was actually probably my freshman year. I was also introduced to weed, which, to be honest, I did a handful of times. The first time I did it, I actually went and did it before a basketball practice. So we would have basketball practice for junior varsity and varsity teams. We'd have basketball practice after school. And so a couple buddies came up to me, and they were older guys, one day at the very end of school, and we always had 30 minutes in between when school ended and basketball practice. And one of them was like, "Hey man, you can go smoke some weed before practice?" And I was like, "I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, won't that fuck up practice? Won't that make it harder to practice?" And they were like, "No man, not at all. It'll make practice better." And so I didn't fucking know any better. So I went and smoked weed and came back. And by the time we got back, I was higher than a fucking kite and basically losing my fucking mind, absolutely fucking paranoid about what was going to happen in practice. Went to practice, had one of the shittiest practices I've ever had in my life because I was just completely out of my mind. And I never smoked weed ever again before practice. And really, I didn't smoke weed a whole lot after that. I mean, in all the years that I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, I only smoked weed probably a handful of times because for me, weed did not do it for me. Weed, I'd get high, it would make me laugh for a little while, and maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes of being high was fun, but after that, it was this dive into this world of either being super fucking tired and munching down a whole lot of food and going to sleep, or being absolutely fucking paranoid out of my mind and just having a terrible fucking experience, none of which I wanted to really ever experience. And so I would do it every now and then, but it was always the same bullshit effect for me, and I fucking hated it. So weed was really never a big part of my drug use. I think the main, and in high school I hardly ever did it because it was just terrible, and there were better things to be doing anyway. I think the kind of the next progression with my drinking in high school was I got to where I was starting to drink during the day some, like during the school day, going out at lunch and drinking and, you know, kind of getting a buzz before going back to class. We had 45 minutes to an hour, so it was plenty of time to chug down a few beers and get to feeling good before going back to school. And, you know, at first, this was kind of terrifying because you'd always be worried that a teacher or somebody was going to smell alcohol on your breath. But eventually, like when that never happened, it was just like, okay, well, fuck it. Nobody can even tell or nobody knows. So this is something I can do on a regular basis. And there were times where, like, we would go get flat out drunk during lunch and come back to school. And that, of course, made school a lot more fun. I was never really into school. I did just enough to where I could pass and play sports. And continue to play sports, but as long as I did that, I was good with my school performance. And so, going out and getting drunk during lunch became not a super regular thing, but something that we would do every now and then. I think my junior and senior year that started happening a lot more. It just kind of progressed to where that was happening a lot more often. And to that note, obviously, if that's what we were doing, you know, me and some of my friends that I would do this with were obviously not too worried about drinking and driving, because we would be drinking and driving when we were doing this. Which leads me to my final kind of story about my high school years in my addiction. There was, as far as the drinking and driving goes, by my junior and senior year, it had become a every weekend thing. Friday night, Saturday night, always drinking to complete excess. And for me, always drinking and driving. Normally I would go somewhere Friday or Saturday night and drink and then drive home because I had a curfew of midnight. And almost every weekend I was drinking and driving on the way back home to get home before my curfew. And during my addiction, there would be several times in my life where I would, you know, have a close brush with death. And obviously I never died. I'm sitting here talking to you, but there were some very close times. There were some times where I probably should have died. Or maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I shouldn't have died because I didn't die and God saved me from dying. But you get the idea. In high school, my junior year, I went out to a party out in the country at some friends' houses one Saturday night, and got really, really, really drunk. And I actually was driving my mom's Suburban that night. And it was getting close to my curfew, and I really had to haul ass to get back home in time. And so I was hammered ass drunk, got in her Suburban, took off, was driving down the road, and was, I think I was fumbling for some CDs and somewhere around the passenger seat or something, because I didn't like the music I was listening to and I wanted to change the CD. So I'm looking, you know, over in this side of the car and not even paying attention to the road, and I'm looking for a CD to switch out. and I find it, and I look up, and I'm going probably at least 60 miles an hour. It's on a kind of a country back road, but it is paved, but it's a really thin road, not a lot, not hardly any shoulder at all. And so I'm not going I'm not going 70, but I think I was going 55, 60 miles an hour. And I look up, and there is a full-on 90-degree turn to my left, and the road is about to end. And I know that if I try to make that turn going as fast as I'm going to roll the car and probably die. And so my only choice is to go off the road. And so I go sailing off the road. I go through all of these trees. Luckily, none of them were very big. Mowing down all these trees, plow through this barbed wire fence, and I end up hitting kind of like a embankment type thing, because I came to a screeching sudden stop, and it was enough that I came forward, bashed my head on the steering wheel, it actually kind of like knocked me out for a split second. And when I kind of came to, I was leaning on the steering wheel of the Suburban, and I looked up, and right in front of me were all these tombstones, and I had wrecked into this old country cemetery kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And it was a very dark, kind of scary feeling. And basically, like in that moment, it hit me that, like, I took that as a message from God. I took that as, Austin, if you don't chill the fuck out and start being more responsible, you're gonna end up here. That is how I received that experience. It was a very strong feeling, a very kind of strong message that I felt I was receiving from God. And I was able to back out of this cemetery and actually end up driving back home. And I got back home, and my mom's Suburban was all scratched up and stuff, and I lied about what I did. I don't even remember what I said, but I did lie about it. And anyway, that moment and that experience actually caused me to stop drinking and driving for a long time. It didn't cause me to stop drinking, but it caused me to stop drinking and driving for a long time. I think at least a year. I think it was a year before I drank and drove again. And yes, I did drink and drive again a lot. And yes, I had more drinking and driving issues and accidents that we'll talk about in other episodes. But that was kind of my last big, or I should say, that was my only big, scary drinking incident that occurred in high school. And there's going to be more that I speak about, but those came later on in life. But with that, I think that really rounds out my drinking and addiction experience while I was in high school. It was just a slow progression from drinking every now and then to drinking every single weekend to drinking Friday and Saturday of every weekend to drinking, during my lunch breaks and coming back to school drunk. It was just kind of that progression. And then throw in discovered weed and hated weed. That was in there too. So that's kind of how high school went for me. And in the next episode, we'll get into college, what happened there, and how did it continue to progress in college. So with that, mugs up. we'll see you tomorrow for episode 103 for the Mugs Up Show. We love you.